And we have one thing on the agenda today. So it is a presentation on, Commissioner Ward and I had asked for a presentation on, the focus is going to be on consequences of the legalization of cannabis for the state. I'm not exactly sure, but I assume it's going to be youth focused, probably. Yeah, there we go. So we have some folks here for the Alliance Against Substance, no, the
Alliance.
it's ASAP. So
Substance abuse and
Alliance for
prevention.
Substance Abuse Prevention.
there we go. Please go ahead.
Welcome.
Well, it's after work, so I think we were hoping to have a little more of a conversation with you,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
follow
that's
up.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And it was a couple months ago where I shared with you a couple handouts about the edible law that, passed. Because I think, part of what we at ASAP want to do, and just as citizens too, Winona County, is make sure you all have all the information, that's out there to make the best decisions you can too. So yeah, I just wanted to pop in again, follow up on that email, that information, kind of talk about the bill that's at the legislature, because I know that you're all busy too, and it's hard enough, even with a job that, try to keep track of it all. So just kind of share updates as I'm following that. One update is that ASAP did bring marijuana into our focus. So over the next year, we're going to be talking about it with students and with the community. So that's one reason why I'm following the bill pretty closely. So I wanted to share, updates on that.
So before on the bill, what did they voted today? And I heard just driving in that the House voted to pass it. So what did they pass? I'm unclear as to what they passed because I've heard age things and stuff like that all going on with this.
Yeah, I did a little homework on that. So,
you know.
in just a little bit, I'll pass around a sheet that kind of summarizes it.
Okay.
That way we're not going to have a 2-hour conversation on just that one bill.
Well, you
and
can't
then-
because we're going to have to stop it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we got an hour.
Yeah. No, and really, we didn't come today with recommendations quite yet. I know that was kind of one of the main questions you had, a couple months ago, is what would you recommend, or what would ASAP recommend to you all? And it's kind of hard to say, when the bill wasn't firmed out yet, and there's just a lot of moving pieces and all these amendments that happened in even just the last month. And I don't know that our board is ready yet to give you a recommendation because it still hasn't passed the whole legislature. So probably wait for that too. The last part that we want to share is just some of our concerns too, just as constituents, from our own experiences in our own work and our own life, et cetera. So I brought copies with again, because I didn't know how easy it would be to dig up the old email and find the handout. So I'll pass those around really quick.
So I can pass them if you want.
Sure. So there's the first one and the second one. So yeah, we'll talk about the first handouts, and then I'll talk about the bill that the House passed and the differences with the Senate one, just so we can kind of know what that even means for us locally, because there's a whole lot to it really that might matter to the local government or not. So the first page is from St. Louis County. They created that document. And it's a really nice fact sheet about the edible bill that did pass, what it means, what it doesn't mean. And then the second page that's stapled, that is from the Public Health Law Center, that has a whole list of cities and counties that enacted some type of moratorium as it relates to the edibles law. Oh, I haven't done anything. I'll hold off for a second. And there in itself is a good, amount of information to digest. So I just wanted to see if there were any questions on it. If you had the chance to look at it before today, since I last sent it. Yeah, what questions do you have about the edible law, what it means? Yeah.
I give you permission. I like that.
No, I was just curious, for the counties that do have moratoriums, are those similar moratoriums? Do they have similarities in the different counties? And then what are they really trying to build out? Just that there's no sale until they can kind of figure out more, like the regulations around it? Is that what it is? I'm just kind of curious about it.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, and by no means am I like the expert on all of this.
No, I
But,
know, I don't expect you to be.
The sense that I gathered is a lot of jurisdictions wanted to just pump the brakes a little bit, because it did kind of fly through the legislature by accident. So a lot of them want to kind of wait and learn more. The links go to each of the moratoriums, but again, like I didn't look at all of them, But I think that's a general sense. A lot of them are similar to just let's learn more before we leave it wide open.
Yeah, because there's been some talk, like, with the different counties about doing moratoriums. We have not explored that. Just because it's like, let them invent the wheel and we'll just purchase the wheel type thing.
Yeah.
If we wanted to do that, if that was the directive of the county board. But I know some of the moratoriums are, even in some of our neighboring counties. So,
Yeah, and that particular bill too, like there's not a lot of guidance on the edibles, So, whereas there's a little bit in the cannabis bill, but I'll talk about the local control in a second.
Okay.
Other thoughts or questions on that? Because, we're happy to look into this more too. I know you all can do that as well, but we're happy to be a resource and help out.
I've had nobody ask me about it in the public.
Nope.
Nobody. No feedback at
Like
all.
Marcia, I'm, this is important, the edibles, but I'm more interested in the current legislation.
Mhm. Yeah.
But like you, Marcia, I've not had anyone contact me either way.
Apparently in Houston County, there was some concern with somebody in the Caledonia retail market that was selling stuff that they felt was not properly labeled. And I had just a little conversation with one of the commissioners. They were thinking of trying to do something, but I don't know what they did.
Weren't they afraid somebody bought the old Dairy Queen and they were gonna turn that into a manufacturing place or
That,
something?
yeah, but I think I had heard that rumor too.
I know there's a store downtown.
And then, there's a store in the downtown area selling something and they were concerned that they were selling something that wasn't. But then again, the rules are, I think, quite vague or some,
Well, they're vague and they're confusing because we've run into that with criminal prosecution. So,
Yeah,
and testing is really hard. So,
The Board of Pharmacy was the one who was asked to oversee it, and I don't think they really cared to.
I don't think they have the staff to do that. So that's one of the problems.
Had to get the whole opioid problem happening as well. There's a lot going on. So here's the summary page that we can pass around to. And then our group did put together a cheat sheet about cannabis.
Thank you, man.
And the cheat sheet is more like terminology.
It won't tell you how to cheat?
Thank you.
Our board tomorrow is going to be talking about doing environmental scans so that we can just learn more about what is in the community. And kind of came up, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? We start looking for things. So that cheat sheet does, have terminology and what's psychoactive or not, what gets you high, what doesn't, what's legal, what's not, as of today. So you can, kind of reference that. So the page with the two columns on the left side is the House Bill, House File 100. And on the right side, the Senate file. This is as of last week. It's the latest copy that I could find. I looked at it like a month ago and there were some changes, so I wanted to get the most up-to-date one. And today they did vote, the House did pass that. And on Friday, the Senate will discuss and vote on it. And then it sounds like they're gonna have another committee to, reconcile the two differences. I don't see that there are very large differences between the two. Some of the differences have to do with possession. What you can have at home is kind of a big one. For example, the House bill that did pass says you can have 1.5 pounds or less at home, whereas the Senate one says 5 pounds or less derived at home.
But it says no homegrown extraction, no homegrown sales, but can't you grow your own? I thought you could about, I thought they were talking, you can have some, yeah, then it says no more than 8 plants
Yeah,
at
you're
home.
limited to. how many
So I
plants.
guess I don't know what no home extraction.
That's a
no
good question,
homegrown
yeah.
Sales means.
There's a whole world, with this cannabis thing. And what the House bill, my interpretation is, it's saying that you can't extract it at your home and like resell it. Because the whole bill, I think overall, generally, this bill compared to a few years ago has a much better licensing and regulatory structure to it, even compared to other states that did pass it. So that's a positive, in Minnesota. So I think they're trying to protect their licenses that they're creating to prevent people from like just doing it at home.
I assume, I know someone who creates CBD tinctures and does extraction using alcohol to get the cannabinoids out. So I assume when they say extraction, it's some kind of process just to get the
A lot of them use butane.
to get the THC out.
That's how places blow up.
Because
Right.
in the gummies, I think they have just the, it's a clear tasteless liquid.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's synthetically made cannabis too, that's genetically modified or whatever, that you can have really high concentration THC. One other thing too, where it says no import sales, because you can get stuff out of state. I think they're preventing people from then buying it because it'd be legal here and then, reselling it themselves.
I'm sorry. And one state can do that. You can put limits on like interstate. What I envision is a bunch of traffic going back and forth from Wisconsin. But one state can put a limit on that in terms of what it does with interstate commerce.
Good question. Not
Not
entirely sure.
Because I remember 1,000
yeah.
years ago when I was young, Wisconsin had a bunch of traffic when Winona students were going to Wisconsin to buy liquor over there.
Mhm.
So now,
Or
Yeah.
fireworks.
Yep, fireworks, yes, the fun stuff.
They still do fire.
Yep.
And they're still open later.
Yeah, no, I mean, today I was just looking at over in Wisconsin, now they're looking at a medical cannabis program.
Medical.
So
Yeah.
whereas before they didn't want anything to do with it. So I think now they're looking at that. The use limits, 21 and older is kind of the standard. Some of the positives I'd say are not being able to use it or operate a vehicle with it, not having it in public schools, charter schools. And the Senate bill does have it too, wherever smoking is prohibited. Well, I don't think the House bill mentioned that, but imagine that would be combined.
But you say not in public or charter schools, is that referring to, what about public universities, public college? Are they gonna allow it in the dorms?
That's
Probably
It,
I bet not. I bet public,
I don't
Age
know,
21.
It's a public school.
age
but it's
21.
21, yeah.
and that might be like one nuance where my document here is kind of like a summary and I didn't, include all of the wording. So
Well, we should
University
maybe
might
have
be
a
in there.
conversation with Governor Walz before he signs anything. Because it sounds like whatever comes across, he's gonna sign. So I don't know.
Yeah.
He's got a teenager, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Hasn't he got a kid?
Two.
Two? Under the age of
No.
21?
I don't know if his
No?
daughter is or not.
One's in college and
Yeah.
one's.
Okay.
But there is some questions about whether it will actually pass in the Senate.
Yeah, I heard that driving in, they didn't know if they had enough votes
Right. Mhm.
in the Senate.
And
And
I'm
that's Friday, Saturday,
I'm curious-
Friday?
Friday, they're gonna discuss it.
I'm curious to know about the taxation stuff, and then who gets the taxes? Does the state keep all of it? Do we get some of it?
That's a question that's
Yeah.
been posed.
NPR had a press release or something in the news today about that. Because I don't recall, but there is slight differences. I think most of the money goes to the general fund in the House bill. Whereas in the Senate bill, there's 25% that goes towards protective things, but I don't know what that means either, if it's law enforcement, prevention, treatment, et cetera. No.
Because I would assume that a bunch of the enforcement will fall on local governments.
Of course. Yep.
Which is why an AMC had that task force that sort of went to Washington State and to Colorado, I think. Their recommendation had to do with allowing local governments to get a share of the tax to meet
Absolutely.
what they require. I mean, and it has to do with if it's legal to grow it, making sure that people aren't growing too much, and in a rural setting, comes a land use. and
I
there's
thought that
zoning
was one
issue.
of the improvements Minnesota was going to make over the first states, was it was going to dedicate the funds for law enforcement, for addiction treatment, for prevention, education. I thought,
Good.
that I don't want to go into the general fund. It'll get lost there.
It'll get lost.
Mhm.
And I haven't seen any breakdown. I know, I did contact Pulowski and Miller and I said, hey, if you guys, if this is going through, you better think of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're right, we'll have a lot at stake.
Mhm.
It comes back to us in terms of public health, mental health, and then
Law
public
enforcement.
public
Yeah,
safety.
law enforcement, the examples that you mentioned, Colorado and Michigan, the
Or
DWIs
Washington,
have
I
gone
state, I
up because of marijuana use. So we're not looking forward to that.
And it is
But-
still illegal at the federal level, right? So then there was this whole big
It's a
issue.
cash business.
Yes, that's right. There's this whole issue about not being able to do transfers through the Federal Reserve, so it has to be a cash business. Sorry.
Then also this morning too, on WCCO, they had a story about, where they had bipartisan, support from both the House and the Senate regarding, letting individuals in prison with a lower level conviction or regarding the sale of marijuana or the related, sale of marijuana. And that was really kind of what was driving both of the House and the Senate, was wanting to get these individuals on.
To decriminalize it, right? So that people with small offenses aren't ending up in jail.
Well, as I read through this, I mean, in the real world, this is all out there already.
Mhm.
Just illegally, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
We just want to tax it. We want to get money.
Well, they do actually. they
well,
do
I mean,
tax it.
but it's regulated and make it safer. I mean, at least it limits the amount in the, in the manufacturing. I don't, it's,
The purity of it, where.
Right. but I mean, yeah, I know, how the stuff from Colorado makes its way this way all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, Illinois,
California,
Michigan.
And I mean, I'll be sitting at the bus stop, somebody's smoking. It is. But on honesty, I can take a walk down through the neighborhoods on my lunch break. And there's people just sitting out on their front stoop smoking. It is.
That's a skunk.
That's skunk.
You got skunks under the porch.
So Phil, I don't know that you know this, and maybe Karen does, but I had talked to Jeff Mueller about it one day at Rotary. So if you're driving drunk, you can do a breathalyzer test. But if you're driving intoxicated, how do you tell?
I mean, driving high.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a drug recognition expert training, or law enforcement has folks who are trained in drug recognition, and they're DREs. So that can be used for the probable cause part of it, but then you have to bring that person out. We don't have a lot. Maybe Jeff talked to you about that. But then a blood test has to be done.
And so can the blood test distinguish between the hemp derived Delta 8.
Well, and that's part of the problem is that some of the, what is supposedly like these gummies that are supposed to be legal
Yes.
have a higher concentration than they should. Kind of like what Commissioner Ward was talking about. that-
But even if they follow this rule, you could eat several and drive.
Well, and that's the problem with marijuana. And I sent you all this article from the Washington Post this
Right.
morning.
Yeah.
That talks about that. You know, and this the author is in favor of decriminalizing it, kind of for some of the reasons you were talking about, of, you know, the regulation, just like how we treat alcohol and tobacco, which in one way is good, but we have to have that in place, and we don't have that all in place. So, you know, it's kind of, there was also another article in the Tribune a week ago, I think. Where is it? I've got it here. The lessons Colorado and Michigan learned from marijuana legalization. So, you know, don't rush into it. Looks like last year. I mean, they passed those and nobody was ready for it. You
Yeah.
know?
Nobody really paid attention.
And our office has been looking at this very carefully because, okay, if they legalize it, which they probably will, but who knows what's going to happen in the Senate. What do we do with, you know, do we don't want to really arrest people now for possession of what would be, you know, a legal substance, but, you know, is that a public safety, you know, is that a good public safety measure? So I don't know. I think, you know, my feeling is that they're jumping ahead too fast on it, but I think it's going to happen. But then the counties and the cities will have to pick up the pieces. So we'll add that to the opioid settlement thing, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and
God.
that's, so, you know, after work, not, you know, what they stop, kind of my feeling too is feel like there's a better licensing regulation, but there's not really a whole lot of enforcement protection built into this bill. Kind of feels like law enforcement's, you know, not being fully included because they're, you know, they're being vocal about it. And I mean, we know how much they deal with. And so to add another fully legal substance, you know, it's only going to make things a little tougher all around. That's, you know, what we hear is the biggest problem. Ironically, we all think of like heroin or meth or, you know, something like that. But, you know, alcohol is really the biggest problem that they deal with. So to kind of picture that with cannabis out there, it's, you know, I don't know that it would double all of the problems, but certainly add more. I wanted to just kind of summarize the local control part because this is different than other states. I think I've been following this since 2017, you know, with my work, and Washington did a good job because they had kind of a whole plan in place too, as far as like prevention, education. And they do have the ability to opt out over there as well. And it was like 60% of jurisdictions said, you know, we don't want this right now in Washington. I think that was part of it. But the Minnesota bills, they don't have that built into it. So basically, they don't want local government to prohibit, you know, any possession or transportation. You can't prohibit having a business in your county.
Does that mean we couldn't do a moratorium on sales?
If that's the case, yes, but I'd want to look at the bill. You know, I mean,
To be
to see
sure.
what the actual language is. Because some counties, as you guys have on your list, and I just looked up Scott County.
Yep.
They issued a temporary moratorium on the edibles back in July. So, but, you know, and then that by itself raises some issues. Can you put that restrictions on a local, you know, local authority? sort of. So even though
The-
we're
I thought-
creatures
yeah.
of the state.
I thought we could be more strict, just not less.
We can, that's right. We can be more strict, right? But if they're saying you can't do anything, I don't know. I've been waiting to, well, what
Till
I'll say
something
is,
final happens, right?
yeah, well, and actually, we've, like I said, we've been working on this in my office too, from the law enforcement perspective, but I've got Alex Tillman, who, appears, you guys know who he is, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
all
We know who
informed now.
Alex is.
Yeah, okay, so Alex has been doing a great job researching this bill, because we had to come up with some kind of, we were discussing with law enforcement, okay, how are we gonna deal with this? When it becomes law, if it becomes law, and what are we gonna do now? Because, okay, are we gonna arrest people now, even though we think that people are, that'll be legal? So do we wanna be, worrying about bringing the DRE guy out or gal out on somebody's under the influence of marijuana right now? Or in possession of, more than a small amount, which gets you into the felony levels. But anyways, in looking at that, I mean, it's a huge bill. It's just a huge bill. So trying to decipher but we'll be looking at that as far as what kind of things we can do at the local level. So.
But here, of all counties that have adopted regulations including licensing and sales restrictions, Rock County. It's the last
Tiny little.
very southwest, I suppose it's next to Iowa and South Dakota. Do they have,
South Dakota legalized marijuana.
okay,
Yeah,
so I mean,
so they're
is that why
probably-
they maybe feel, Rock County, it's,
If it's a statement, Marcia.
it obviously is.
And in the last few weeks, the hemp growers have come out and talked to legislature about this bill too, because I think there's some differences that wouldn't be reconciled. Because what passed, over a year ago, doesn't mesh well with the new bill. So
Well, they don't want too many licenses. They want it restricted so that those that have them can still make money. You give everybody a license, it gets diluted and then nobody makes money.
Well, and that's a good point, Marcia, because that's another thing that happened in some of the other states where they diluted the licenses so
Yeah.
much that the illegal market kept going
Going,
because it
but-
was cheaper
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
yeah, you have to be careful what you wish for.
That's right. Open
I guess I
Pandora's
thought California
box.
was so restrictive that it still had the same thing, that the taxes were so high in
So
the state of California
Mhm.
that
That they also were selling.
they
it
kept
on
the
street.
illegal
Yeah.
trade
Mhm.
alive, yeah.
Yeah.
the part about local control, it's just a little unclear because the language says you can have reasonable restrictions on time, place, and manner of business, but there's really not a whole lot of other detail with it, so not a whole lot of, guidance from the state on what you can do. But I mean, so overall, like, to kind of summarize it, I mean, I do think there are some hopeful things in this bill, even around advertising, where they, don't allow pop-up ads or location-based online ads. I mean, it's really measures to prevent another Juul incident from happening,
Yep.
in my opinion. So that it's not marketed to young people right away online. So, there's better things in this one than before. I just feel like we should have full law enforcement, behind this. If we're going to just open it up to the marketplace. And hopefully this will be helpful to you, in the next week. We'd like to keep the conversation going too, as well. ASAPs, we're talking about it as well. We're learning more about it as well. But I'm not the only one, that wanted to share, what we're learning and our concerns too. So
Yeah.
whoever wants to.
Hi, everybody. I'm Helen Bagshaw. Really happy to be here again. I come as a healthcare provider, and cannabis is not a safe drug. There's no recommendations apart from one drug for severe seizures that is being tested and recommended. So it's not a safe drug. And we do know from the 2022 Minnesota student survey that when Winona students did that survey, that the 30-day marijuana use rates doubled amongst 11th graders. So the more, marijuana, cannabis, all these names are flying around, the more it becomes normalized and legalized, and the more our youth are going to say, hey, must be okay. And the same for our community. I'll go to Quick Trip, I'll get my gallon of milk and give me a bit of marijuana and some gummies as well. I feel like we need to take caution. We need to know and educate ourselves as much as we can, and to really, keep realize that there hasn't been a lot of research and, I know I'm going back to my old favorite about smoking, but what we know about smoking from 40 years ago to what we know now, we're all wise to the situation. But
you can't do research because it's illegal. Doesn't that prohibit the medical research that's
I think there's a
needed?
special law that prohibits research.
Something.
But we
I
can
mean,
educate ourselves on what we can when we're talking in the community, and when, even though I know you've said you haven't had any people coming up to talk to you about it yet, but you will. And I think parents and our youth are going to be asking questions. And so, we want to have that information to share, because it's going to, if it doesn't get past this term, it'll get past next. It's definitely coming. So we need to keep those conversations going. And just one more thing from the Minnesota school survey was that the perceive, it says Winona County students were least likely to perceive great or moderate risk of harm from marijuana use. The marijuana of the 60s and, 420 and all of that, the THC was, 3-6%. Now we can buy you can get THC that's 40-50%. And what's that doing to our lungs? Because, hey, marijuana, you can vape it, you can smoke it, you can eat it, you can snort it, you can, none of this has been tested. So,
but Helen, is there research pointing to that? Say, because you just said, you can smoke it, you can vape it, you can everything. Is there research saying if you eat it, it's going to have the same detrimental effect as if you smoke it or anything? So we don't know.
we don't know.
We don't know. See, and
We don't know.
that's part of the problem of trying to convince somebody that we don't know. We
Yeah.
think it's bad,
Yeah.
and we're pretty leaning towards it's bad, but
No, that's why we've got to, come together and say, hey, let's go into the hemp shop on the corner of, near Quick Trip. Let's go into these places. Let's look at it. Let's see it. Let's be open. Because, we can't just read about it on paper or on a video. We've got to go in there and see, and because that's what our kids are doing.
So back to your first, when you first talked about the school survey, you said that there was an 30% increase, but just tell me from when to when. And I know that this is because ASAP surveys our students here.
Yeah.
So it's our
Yeah.
students.
So the last survey was done 2019,
Uh-huh.
and then this one was 2022.
So is this ASAP survey? Is this the?
No, this is the
This is
Minnesota.
Yep.
Yep.
yeah,
Ah.
Minnesota student survey.
Oh, no, it's an ASAP survey.
No, it's the
No.
state.
It's the state one that we did at Health and Human Services.
Right,
Okay.
right. And that includes St. Charles and Lewiston.
Right,
and
it's all
Winona.
Yep, it's the entire county,
And they
yeah.
can do it, they can drill down to the schools too.
Probably don't make that public, but yeah.
We had a presentation on CJCC 10
Let
years
Becky,
ago.
Oh, did you? I must have missed that.
We can bring her back. In fact,
Hey, thank you, Helen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Need more facts, Helen.
well, could I just note
I just want to
something?
give, I just want to share.
I know, but
Speaking
we
of-
need to,
well-
speak with facts
Yeah,
too.
but again, sorry the article I sent you just, earlier this afternoon, and I hope you can click on it. I'm gifting it to you with my Washington.
Yeah, your
Post
subscription, usually they won't let me read those things.
Well, but this is, you should, and if you can't, let me know, but.
Yeah, I can download it too. I have a
It
subscription.
cites multiple studies. New Zealand, our own National Institute on Drug Abuse, studies that have been done, the JAMA Psychiatric Journal, studies that have been done that show the side effects of marijuana and in kids as well as adults. But yeah, kids and pregnant women, fetal development, ooh,
Yeah.
that's really bad. So sorry to take your thunder.
No,
there.
that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank you all for taking the time tonight. My name is Becky Wisted, and I'm very passionate about youth. As some people know, I've worked with youth for many years,
Mhm.
and I'm a youth director at our church, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen when this bill is passed. It's going to normalize it for the kids, and it's going to be okay. You know, it's legal. I can do this. Talking with Jeff Mueller, he said of all the drugs that the police force deal with, alcohol, the legal drug, is one they have the most problem with.
Mhm.
What's going to happen now when this does get passed? And I agree with Helen, it's going to get passed. Governor Walz can't wait to sign the bill.
Mhm.
And so my concern is it's going to normalize it for these kids, and it's going to be okay for them to do it. And all the studies out there, we don't have all the facts, but you know it affects people. You need a prescription for medical use. We're going to make it legal for everybody to have. And these poor kids are up against enough stuff in their life right now. They don't need to add this to them. They don't need to worry about, I'm not going to get home from school today because I'm going to get shot at the high school. So I'm going to go out and get high by the smoking tree. You know, and I'm not naive. I know it happens now. Winterfest, the gym smell like pot and alcohol. I know it's out there. But this is just going to normalize it for them more. And it's going to undercut. I mean, we're going to have the drug dealers out there. Yeah, they're going to tax it, but they're going to get a better deal from Joe on the corner than they are from the hemp shop on Huff Street.
Right.
And so they can regulate it all they want, but the kids are still going to find it. They're finding it now. And how safe is it going to be? And so I'm afraid of setting up this generation who's going to be taking care of my generation down the road. And that scares me about what this is going to do to their brain. And their brains are still forming until they're what, 25, 26? I'm 60. I don't know. I'm still forming. And so, you
Yeah,
know, what's
something
it
said
gonna do?
they were maybe gonna limit, well, again, they were gonna put 25 in
They
here,
talked
but
about it, yeah.
yeah, but again, like you say, they'll get it. They'll have it.
You've got these, and you've got little kids getting hold of those gummies. Little ones getting hold of gummies because they're gummies. And what kid doesn't like gummies? What adult doesn't like gummies? But these poor little ones are getting hold of gummies now. And what's it going to do to their brain? And so I'm just really passionate about our youth and our kids. And with the money that's going to be used, I hope that they have treatment plans set up and education. And I'm afraid for our law enforcement because they're going to have to be dealing with all of this. And I'm scared for our youth. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
I don't know if there's a win-win here at all. I mean, I don't know if a win-win is even obtainable.
Any other discussion? Somebody want to move to adjourn?
Well, so right now, this is just informal talk.
Right.
We're not being asked to do anything. We're not being asked to,
No.
okay,
We have to wait and see what the law is, how they change. it.
okay,
But thank you for listening to us.
thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank
Yeah, if
you.
there's anything else that we can help look into, like I wrote down the tax revenue,
Mhm.
something relevant to you all.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
Yeah, the revenue
Yeah, there's
stream.
other parts of it, you know, like research behind it, you know.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I don't know, smoking, we've all been told smoking's bad for you. I mean, just the lungs and everything and, and I had a father that died from lung cancer and, and he was a smoker in his early life. He wasn't the last 60 years of his life, but anyway. So, is edible, because you can eat these things. Does it have the same impact, long-term, short-term? I don't know, because you're right. They went to gummies with all this stuff. Everything can come in a gummy now. It's ridiculous, vitamins, every drug is available in gummy form. So we become gummyized. But is it the same effect if you put the marijuana in the brownie mix? I don't know. I mean, if you ingest it that way versus smoking it.
Still goes in your bloodstream.
Yeah, it goes in your bloodstream, but
Part of
I
it.
would think it's
I have
impacts
a-
your other organs.
it said in here somewhere it goes slower or fat. Where did eating it.
I have a nephew who has a medical prescription. He's highly handicapped, lives in Red Wing, Minnesota. My sister has to go up to St. Paul to the dispensary or whatever to get it, but it has helped seizures. It has helped his quality of life. So, I mean, there is certainly a medical benefit that has been experienced from what I've witnessed in my little corner of the world and for
Yes.
my nephew.
Yeah, you're right. It does.
Yeah, and I think there is like medical research out there about medical marijuana. And I think we oftentimes forget about just the difference, in language. We all talk about marijuana and we think one thing, but there is a difference, between medical marijuana and recreational or commercial or whatever you want to call it.
What is the difference?
Well, I think the medical stuff
concentration?
is the stuff that, FDA has reviewing, and I think they have one or two that are approved, and that's,
But what
Different
is
forms.
what is the difference? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know. Is it the concentration or the?
I would think concentration for sure, because if you
Kind,
look
you
at
know?
other commercial
Yeah,
markets around the
just
country,
click
And
they
on
you're
have
here.
Googling
THC
it?
content of
Yeah.
20-30% plus.
Google it.
It's the FDA regulates that, and there's certain limits to it, and it's like any drug, really, like Helen was saying, or I think, and it's been allowed for years for medical. I think it does have a good, it's for chemotherapy patients too. I mean, it helps a lot, but what goes on the street, even from the licensed sellers after this bill passes, we don't know, how do we know that it's really, you can't check every batch, sort of, so.
Samples. Elective, samples for elective.
Yeah. There you go.
So,
We'll be
Yeah,
careful.
we can gather more
Watch
info.
out if there's any brownies in that box, Greg.
but here you go.
I got cookies.
Which one?
FDA has approved this, which contains a purified form.
I mean,
That's
is
for
it,
medical marijuana.
but is it
for
less
treatment.
than what we're talking about here? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I
I don't
mean, I'd
know.
have to read this
Yeah.
whole thing.
I don't know
But it
what the
has-
medical
It
marijuana.
has, the,
differences.
the active components of THC.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Would it help folks to know like where we are in this position? I know we all need more information. I need more information, but in terms of like moving forward, like what do groups like ASAP or other groups focus on, et cetera, or is that too soon to start?
I think until the legislation is passed, we don't really know.
Like I'm actually more interested in the legislation to make sure that the funding that's raised goes to law enforcement, goes to addiction, goes to education awareness. Like cigarette use has decreased thanks to the work of many groups like this and others, et cetera, over time. I personally don't smoke marijuana, but I do drink. I don't smoke nicotine or whatever else. But personally speaking, from myself, I don't feel comfortable yet supporting a moratorium, et cetera. I think we need all kinds of educational sessions and questions answered. Law enforcement, schools, churches, businesses, all et cetera. But
Looks like we might not have an option of a moratorium as well,
yeah, it
right?
does.
depending on-
So maybe after the legislation
Okay.
passes,
Yeah.
All right.
we can get
And-
another update?
And the last, I mean, I've been trying, any legislation trying to follow it is, it doesn't sound like any
Chaotic
money's
right
coming.
now.
Nothing's coming to the counties for the taxing. It sounds like it was all gonna go to the general fund, which is unfortunate,
Mhm.
but that may change. But they didn't address it in the little summary sheet here.
I don't think the state of Minnesota needs any more tax.
No, they're,
although it's a
don't
use
renew,
tax.
better stop driving then, because your car tabs are gonna go up astronomical. A lot of fees and taxes are gonna increase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you for
all
your
right.
Thanks a
time.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep us posted.
Yeah.
We all have public emails, so if you get some breaking news or something, you can send it to us.
Thanks again.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe Karen, there's a resolution too late in the game, like from the county board, asking our legislators to make sure it's directed towards, it's too late in the game.
So I can tell you that AMC and Micah have taken a position that they don't oppose it. They want to be included,
Right.
Want to be at the table.
and they are advocating
I've
for
been-
those things.
Okay, I've been following that. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
But it sounds like Friday they're gonna vote,
Mhm.
and
All right.
Walls has said he's signing anything that gets passed. So
Yeah.
Madam Chair, we need a motion to adjourn when
Oh.
you're ready.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Bagley's moved, Olson has seconded, adjournment of the committee of the board. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay.
Department of Human Services Amendment Number 4 for Grant Contract 173184, Children's Mental Health Respite Care Services. 7.6, approve resolution and agreement 1053206 with MnDOT for construction engineering reimbursement for the 2020 CASA 1 slide repair. 7.7, award bid for aggregate shouldering to Dunn Blacktop. 7.8 was pulled. 7.9, approve Mississippi River Winona La Crescent sub-agreement for watershed-based implementation funding with Root River Soil and Water Conservation District. 7.10, approve renewal of indirect cost allocation plan agreement with Government Management Group. 7.11, approve donations received January 1, 2023 to March 31st, 2023. 7.12, authorize disposal of excess furniture and equipment. And 7.13, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you. Thank you. If we wish to approve the consent business, a motion would be in order.
I'll move to approve the consent items.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Vagley has moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the consent business as it was read. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay. Consent business has passed. Item 8.00 was previously 7.3. You can find it on page 23 of the packet.
And I did ask to have this pulled, and with Mr. Womet's comments and him having a meeting scheduled for, I believe, May 5th or 3rd, I would like to allow him to have that meeting before we entertain a contract with another vendor. But I do have some questions that, and I know Ms. Holte sent out an email, it's saying we don't, and part of it, maybe I'm reading this wrong, and we're under no obligation to invite CAM or any other providing professional monitor to submit a proposal. But then it says, in the paragraph ahead of that, the county on behalf of its Health and Human Service Department has not had a contract or a formal agreement with CAM, but then we're being asked to do a formal agreement with a different vendor. And I don't know that we've had the agreement with this different vendor. And then, and I understand the amount, we don't need to have a competitive bid. And then the question about the complaint and then not having a contract and who's responsible. Is it the vendor or is it the jail staff? Is it the individual? Do we need to hold the individual responsible for having these units charged and serviceable? So I guess there's still a lot of questions. And the question comes up again, was brought up tonight, is that this the new contract tends to be, it appears that it's higher priced. And one of the questions I have is the client who is required to use these services, do they have a choice? Or if we sign this contract, they automatically have to use the higher priced services.
Health and Human Services Director.
Yeah, sounds like-
Janice would like to respond. I
Yep,
think.
sounds like you got some answers for me.
Yes, I do.
Thank
I
you.
do. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Yes, so with our current system, we need to have a contract in place because of to be in compliance with the rules and regulations. That's what you hired me to do, is to assure we are in compliance with rules and regulations. I need to have a contract with a vendor. If we are not able to get a contract in place with our vendor, we will have to cease all services until we can get a contract in place. That is going to take months. That means that our parents that we are working with in child protection will no longer be able to have access to drug patches. Our social workers will not be able to have monitoring in place for parents who have issues with alcohol. We will not be able to have any of those services available to our staff to be able to do their jobs, which are required, mandated services. We also, these are tools that they need to be able to complete their jobs and to work with Attorney Sonomans and the courts to be able to show and prove that parents are in compliance with their case plans. Also, you are very aware that the juvenile DOC does come out of my budget. That means no electronic home monitoring would be available for them also. And so what I'm asking for, the contract that you have before you is a fee for service. It is a true fee for service where they provide the service, then they invoice us and we pay. There is no minimum usage that we have. And then have the meeting, CAM system can have the meeting with Ms. Holte, and then we can move forward if that is what they recommend, and Attorney Sonneman recommends, to be able to come into compliance with CAM system in a contract. So that is my recommendation, and that is my ask for today, is to be able to approve the Midwest monitoring, and then we'll continue the conversation between Administrator Holte, Attorney Sonneman, and CAM system to be able to come together and determine whether we need to enter into a contract if that is what their and the board's desire is. So that is kind of what I'm asking. The adult services are different because the adults, like the adult DOC system and Huber and work release and all of that is different because the inmates or the people on probation have to pay that service in order to be able to get out and do what they need to do. My service, I have to pay for it in order for these children and my workers to be able to be reunified with their parents, which is a mandated service that we have to provide. So that is my questions.
Okay, Commissioner Ward?
So is this a renewal contract? Have we had a contract before, or is this mandated contract something new?
No, it's not a mandated contract. We provide,
Mandate that you have a contract. Well,
yeah, no,
service
we've
available.
never had this service under contract with anyone. Okay, no one, and I need a contract. Okay,
but I'm not sure why, if we have multiple companies that can provide these services, why we would limit ourselves to a contract with one.
well, we can contract with 10 of them if we want to. We can contract with CAMS and we can have a contract with Midwest Monitoring. There's nothing in statute that says we can't have that.
Okay, but being that this is paid through your budget, you would dictate who they use?
Well, yes, if we have a contract with the people, yes, we would,
Have two contracts.
right.
How would you determine who it's this client and not that client? And
We would leave it up to the choice of the parent or the parent of the child that needs electronic home monitoring.
okay, so approving this contract doesn't prohibit CAM from coming in with a.
Correct, Attorney Sonneman?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you're looking at me, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm, yeah.
been a long day.
Yes, I know.
No, from what, and I've talked with Ms. Sanis about this, so it's not anything new to me.
Mhm.
And I appreciate her conversations with me to understand that, as she said, in the past, there's never been a contract for these services for Department of Human Services needs for child protection cases, juvenile delinquency cases. And that's totally separate from the adult world.
Yep.
And it's my understanding that because Ms. Sanis has been reviewing a lot of these contracts and has determined that this certain service needs a contract
Yes.
under like federal regulations, perhaps
Mhm.
state regulations. So
All the
this-
above.
yeah, okay. This is new in the sense that in the past, it's always been basically the parents kind of pick, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so now the county is responsible for arranging for this service under a contract so that the feds and the state, I'm assuming, can review that contract and make sure that it meets their standards. But that does not prohibit the county from then also offering an alternative service, should it be CAM or anybody else. So I think that's what Ms. Sanis is trying to explain here too. It doesn't exclude any others from saying, well, we can also provide a service and giving the parents a choice. So.
Commissioner Ward? Otherwise, I do have a couple questions.
Well, so I'm looking at the breakdown of things, and you said this is for the kid safety, But it seems like it's all kinds of things that get put on the adult.
Correct, because it is our job to,
That adults were different.
no, okay, but these are child protection. So civil cases versus criminal cases. So our child protection cases are civil cases. So we work with the family unit. We don't just work with the children, we work with the family unit especially when a child is in out of home placement, because a majority of our cases are due to drug use, correct? So what we are doing is that we have to monitor and assure that that parent is completing their case plan, which part of it is to remain drug free. So we use these sweat patches to be able to see if a parent has remained abstinent or if they've used. It's part of safety planning for these children to reunify. And that is our jobs, is to reunify families when a child has been removed from a home. We are court ordered. It's state law. It is federal law that we have to provide reunification services for at least 365 days. So that is why that's why that is in the adult parameters within Health and Human Services. I don't do the criminal stuff except for the juvenile delinquency.
And am I right in understanding that? So CAM Systems hasn't had a contract with the county, but they have had contracts individually with inmates of the jail who need to get monitoring.
And I'm not sure if it's a contract, but they would sign up with CAM.
They have an agreement.
Well, the jail has a list, as I'm not sure it was in the letter, but has a list of companies that adult inmates who have now been given the privilege to
Go to Huber release.
Huber,
right?
or to be released on a pretrial release by the court, that they can choose. And Midwest Monitoring was one of the companies. CAM was one of the companies, and there was another one I can't remember, but I think it was some kind of Minnesota monitoring.
So, and this is a separate
That
and
is
new
separate.
monitoring requirement.
It's not a new requirement. It is always something that we have done, but it is the compliance piece that I'm concerned about. Okay, so we have regulations as far as compliance with data privacy. We have requirements as far as, to assure, different licensing, and that we're using licensed providers. And so all of that gets put into the contract and how that is going to be handled. And so we need to be able to reassure that we have those compliances in place and that we're meeting those regulations.
If I could just add, if you notice, the contract that's in your packet with Midwest Monitoring also has a business associate agreement. Now that is what is really critical, because you're dealing with confidential information, different kinds of things. And that business associate agreement is used to make sure that whoever we're contracting with understands their obligations to handle this kind of.
Can you point to where that is?
I think at the end. There,
Independent contractors, business records.
Appendix 1, scope of service. I think it's after scope of service.
Obligations, it's under number 2.
39.
Yeah, page.
Yeah, business
Yeah.
associate.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah. So it's mandated by the privacy rule, which comes under the federal HIPAA. So there you go. Federal HIPAA.
So moving forward with this, I'm sorry.
I
Commissioner
just
Reagan.
want to come back to what Commissioner Ward said. So if I came into the meeting thinking that we should table it to allow Mr. Wimet and County Administrator Holte to have a chance to talk and clarify some things, but if we were to approve with Midwest Monitoring, it's not an exclusive contract. We
Absolutely.
could also later on agree to contract with CAM,
Mhm.
and then it's the individual, both on the human services and on the jail side. It's their choice what service they go with, right?
Correct.
We can't dictate which service. It's their choice.
That's right.
Okay.
But to be clear, there's no contract on the adult side.
Okay.
So that's already happening with the adults.
Right.
Yep.
It's been happening for years.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
always been their choice.
Right. And there's never been a contract
Okay.
between the county and the.
But okay.
So moving forward, this doesn't preclude a second
Additional
contract.
vendor.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And then it allows my staff to be able to continue doing their jobs.
And they're being held up right now as a result of this. So
Yes.
there's some activity that should be happening that is not happening because we don't have the contract. So there's some
Correct.
urgency towards getting it.
Correct.
Okay.
I have training set up this week with Midwest Monitoring.
Don't totally comprehend that, so I won't support the motion, but
As long as it's clear that another vendor could be approved later on and added as an option, I'll be comfortable with, as long as Cam, if could bring forward a presentation and clarify some things, as long as they can be added later on. I would support a motion I'll make a motion to approve Midwest Monitoring with the understanding that later on another vendor could be added.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Vegley has moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of item 8.00, approved purchase service and business associate agreements with Midwest Monitoring. Is there further discussion?
the statement is that once you give somebody a contract and staff is getting trained, to get that other contract a fair and equal chance seems to be a little bit more limited in my respect. Should have been worked out before, and it should have been at the same time. Contract should have been at the same time. That's
Any
just my
further,
thought.
any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion does carry.
Thank you.
Next item is 8.01. It used to be 7.8. It's on page 79 of the packet. Approved Supervisor Association Amendment 2023 through 24.
Yes, and I asked this poll, and just, it's unfortunately a lost opportunity to talk as my favorite subject in union contracts. It's a pay for performance option. So I will not support the contract.
I'll move to approve item, what was 7.8? I'm sorry, I lost track of what the new
Yep.
number is.
8.01.
8.0.
Second.
Commissioner Vegley has moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the Supervisor Association Amendment 2023 through 2024. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. If anyone's opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. We move on to items 8.1 and 8.2, which are to receive the monthly finance and budget updates for January 2023 and February 2023.
I'm here to report on the February and January and February months. And I'm going to actually just go through the February because January is encompassed into February. So starting out with the revenue fund, 13.8 million is the beginning cash. Revenues were 544,000. Actual expenses were 1.7. Ending cash is 12.6 in the revenue fund. For the year, it started out at 15.5. Actual revenues were 985,000. Actual expenses were 3.9. Ending cash is 12.6. The variance in the revenue fund is negative 2.9 compared to last year's negative 2.7. And you can see for the whole year, again, that we're at a negative 2.7 compared to basically a negative 2.7. Any questions on this document? If not, we'll go to the summary. Summary starts out at 19.6 for beginning cash. Revenues were 4.7. Actual expenses were 7.4. Ending cash is 16.9. Variance is the negative 2.6 compared to negative 2.7. Any questions on this document? If not, we'll go to the summary budget. We're looking at February here. February is 17% of the year through. Looking at the expenses and all the funds, general, I guess all of them, general, recycling, highway, transportation, human services, all of them are under 17% of expenses at the present time. I also want to point out at the very,
I've got, my packet, I've got just January.
Me too. It says January and 8%.
Yeah,
oh, there should, right after that, there's another document.
104.
doesn't come,
There should be another one right after that.
Yeah, there, yeah.
104?
There it
Yeah,
is.
page 104 is the grid he's on, or the spreadsheet he's
Okay.
on right now.
102.
Okay.
That's a two? No,
Yeah,
104.
okay,
104.
okay. Now I've got it. Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, and if you look at that 17%, all the funds are under the 17%. Even highway at this point is just right at 17%, and that fluctuates all the time.
Pretty good planning, man.
Yeah. And then I just want to point out the last thing is on the revenue, we're projecting that we're going to bring in 150,000. So far, we bought $1,251. But also the interest at this point is also, some months are very high, some are low. That number has changed a lot here in the month of March. Any questions on that document? If not, thank you.
Thank you. Item 8.3, discuss/appoint an interim planning and environmental services director. All there is in the packet is really
Yep,
the
that's it.
description.
Yep.
We had a email earlier that had more details in it. Is there discussion, or Administrator Holte, did you want to start us off?
We've been down this path before.
We have.
What is it? We just can't hold on to planning directors. We burn them, we chew them up, spit
Well,
them
I
out.
think we could beg Kay to stay.
I'd like to speak if I may.
Please.
Step forward.
I'm on my, at least,
I think
Fourth.
fourth for you.
yeah, at least four.
So prior to the discussion of this item, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board, Madam Chair, and County Administrator Holte and County Attorney Karen Soneman, my work colleague, and really thank you very much for the opportunity to have served as Planning and Environmental Services for 6 years. So unlike what Commissioner Ward is intimating here, I've actually outlasted quite a lot of my predecessors. And so
I'm on four.
there's a lot more before that. So it is a tough job, but there are many positives that I'm going away with. The friendships, the opportunities, to work with the staff. We've got a lot of good technical experts in the department, as well as the work colleagues that we have here. And the county board's decisions at budget time have affected the department positively. The support of training so these technical experts can maintain their certification so that the work that they provide, the staff reports and so on, are as accurate as we can possibly make them, that we can do maybe a little bit more compliance work where required, where we have the chance to get folks out in the field. We have the opportunity now for the first time in 2 years to actually be fully staffed, with the exception of my position, sorry. My family is all now in eastern Wisconsin. Migrants from Minnesota landing in eastern Wisconsin, who would have known? But at any rate, that kind of support in the past has been excellent, and we're probably going to challenge you with parks to get some major things done after a long, long time of really a lack of supervision from the head of this department. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and also to let you know that Administrator Holte and I have been meeting toward, sort of looking at some kind of Venn diagram types of things for reporting with the supervisory level folks and senior planner type of position, in order to kind of smooth things out, to put the least burden possible on administration. And I feel confident that that will take place. So again, thank you very much. Friday's my last day here, and then I will be living in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Anybody that's ever gone to Door County, you come to Oshkosh, come and see me, and then take a left and you go to Door County. So thanks again, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. And if any of you didn't know, she's having a retirement party here on Thursday at 2:30.
30 to 3:30.
Okay,
So, in a nutshell, Director Qualley did summarize that we've been working on a game plan, and I really am very confident in the management staff of the Planning and Environmental Services, that with their assistance, that they will be handling a vast majority of things that need to be done. We have very skilled people. The things that our department head level must addressed at that level are really the things that would be kind of falling to me in the interim period. We'll try and contract out what we can if we're looking at more of a long-term thing. However, I have confidence that we are going to be able to get somebody. So I'd open up for discussions, but Director Qualley has been absolutely exceptional at putting everything together with a game plan. So I do applaud her.
Commissioner Ward?
Two things come to mind, is our capacity. Now, you said we have filled, we've had a vacancy, that person has accepted employment. Didn't we have an opening?
We had 2 openings, and I know that one had accepted. I don't know if the second one accepted. Do you know, Director Qualley?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we
You
will.
said we'd be fully staffed except
Right.
your position. Okay, and they
Mhm.
come with, are they up to speed on certificates or training, or is this on
One
the job
is,
training?
one isn't.
Okay, all right. Because capacity is important. With capacity in mind, I had a brief conversation with a commissioner from Houston County. And I know in the past, we've done some cooperative work with feedlot officer and things like that. And so if we need to, and I am a person who believes in regionalization, if we need to, we should reach out to some of our neighbors and see if there's a specific skill set. Like I know septic is a real important one that you have to have pretty high certificates of compliance. And so I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to our neighbors and see if we have any, if they have any capacity that could help us if we exceed our capacity. The other thing I know Kay was going to be working on, and I don't have a burning desire to push it forward, is the update on the comp plan. I think with our situation right now, I think we do ourselves an injustice if we tried to push something through without staff being totally engaged and a director with that important of a document. I don't see a lot of changes needing to happen, but I don't want to hire a consultant and get they'll dust off a copy off the shelf and put Winona County on the front, and we pay big bucks. I think it needs to be an important review. So again, depending on staffing and everything, I think that's something we could maybe put on the back burner for just a little bit until we are fully with a director and everything. Would be my personal preference with that part of it.
So we had budgeted for a consultant to work on that anyway. So there wouldn't be any reason to not move forward, is there?
Well, but
Statutory obligated to.
Yeah.
well, we aren't. They don't do anything to it. Houston County hasn't done one for 20 years, and now they are doing it. My concern, though, is if you go out and hire a consultant and you don't have somebody internally really, and last time we did it as a committee, citizen-driven committee. And if we don't have citizen input and everything, you're going to get a document that comes out, like I say, comes off the shelf and it's rubber stamped.
Oh, of course
and
we would have
stuff
citizen input.
and such. But no, I just feel that it's more important. I don't want to rush the process. I don't want to go out and hire a consultant to get some kind of report that, again, doesn't reflect the
Is that
needs.
on the agenda?
Mr. Bagley?
We finished, Commissioner?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, couple things is, after being gone for 12 years, coming and seeing what was added to the planning director's plate, I couldn't imagine that I was surprised to see all the things that were added to your job description. That kind of blew me away in terms of those additional duties. I hope that some of those things we can look at, is that truly the best way to like, for example, the EDA and some other positions. I was surprised to see that all was added to your plate. Thank you for doing that. And you served for, is it 7 years? 6. And that's the longest that I think that in the last 20 years someone has served is
That's
6
true.
years. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. So I want to just clarify. So what are we, says discuss appoint interim planning. So are we discussing making you the interim planning director, or what's the proposal? And there was the email.
Right.
Right.
The recommendation is to put myself as the interim.
Okay.
However, you can select who you want. So it really is for you to discuss. Again,
And the email mentioned Eric would take care of some things, and you had different people taking care, and do you feel comfortable with that, Kay?
I do.
Okay. So do we need a motion to make that appointment, or is it just a general discussion?
No, we do need a motion, and that is for the sake of signing any potential
Mhm.
documents that are officially the planning director's responsibility.
I feel bad doing this because we were trying to get things off of your plate. No.
It'll be minimal, trust me.
It's the dead man's rule.
The staff are absolutely
Yep.
outstanding. I mean, like Ms. Ward said, we've been through this before
Yep.
and they did an excellent job.
I'll make a motion to appoint Ms. Holte as the interim planning director.
Second.
Commissioner Begley has moved, Commissioner Olson has seconded, appointing Administrator Holte as the interim Planning and Environmental Services Director. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Ward?
And staff, it sounded like from the email, staff is good with it. Now, I am a little, with some new people coming on board, who is somebody, are they going to job shadow somebody, or we've got that worked
We
out
have a
too?
game plan, yes, and Director Qualley helped with that.
Okay, because I don't know that you have all the licensures or expertise. And
No,
you live in
ma'am.
Wisconsin, so that's a whole nother set of rules, you know. Minnesota rules are different than Wisconsin rules.
I've been
Okay,
here for a while though. Yeah.
I do have a question. And that is, when do you think we'd be able to post for the actual hire?
So we have a draft that is being worked on. Currently, I just reviewed all the interview questions, the modified classification and the profile today. So hopefully by the end of the week, Monday, I would think maybe at the latest.
Great. Awesome.
So we are trying to move that along.
Commissioner Ward?
okay, so you triggered modified classification. What have you done there?
To make the roles and responsibilities more up to date.
Okay.
Reflective with the assistance of Director Qualley, she provided us.
So staying with, in charge of the Parks and Environment Committee,
Yes.
Extension Committee, EDA.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's still
That's in there.
encompassing, it's encompassing all of that.
Director Qualley?
Okay,
So there is no still. None of that was in the job description I was hired with. So Commissioner Begley is correct, but I agreed to all those things and they were implicit, but now they're more specific. So working very closely with the personnel department to make sure that the candidates coming in understand what supervisory things they'll be doing, parks and environment, EDA and so on. But it was very gappy in that area. And there was a lot of language that was not as specific as I think it needed to be for attracting someone. And so Ms. Holte was very kind to allow me to kind of dig into it and be brutally honest. And then now they're crafting the product that will be the best, you know, at the end. So I sort of tore it apart to try to put it back together again. But yes, many things like parks, like most of the environmental services stuff was not in there either. So there's a lot of parts to the job, but now it will be covered in the job description rewrite.
okay, all right. Thank you for that
Thank you for doing that.
clarity. Okay,
Any further discussion?
So hopefully by the end of the week, next week, this will go out. I know it's impossible to know for sure, but like, what's the time frame you would guess? We might, I know there's interviews, there's a process, et cetera.
Mhm.
Like how long do you think this might take on the short end? I know.
The estimate of closing the position is May 22nd.
That would be amazing.
mhm.
So then it's a matter of how quickly we can get the rest of it wrapped up.
Closing as in terms of accepting
Applications.
Applications.
Mhm.
and then.
And then we shortened the timeframe for interviews. We'll have one day with all of the interviews instead of two sets, 2 different dates. There'll be a pre-vetting of the applications to expedite that process. As far as, you know, the rest of it, it really is not within our control, meaning if there's the background check and all of those things. All goes well, 3 months.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
3 months from now.
And again, may be able to move that up a little bit, but it really is not 100% within our control.
Okay.
But we will expedite to the point that we can.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So May, June, July.
Yep.
Yeah. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, which is to appoint Administrator Holte for the interim, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you again, Kay. Kay,
Yeah.
thank you again.
Commissioner Ward, you had a request for board action.
Well, we had talked about this and I'm just wondering the timeline. We had talked about a ranked choice voting presentation. And I was hoping, and again, will it happen before the I wanted to see where state legislation was going on this. Secretary of State Simon came out and said, Minnesota's not ready for this. So I don't know if the legislature is going to put it, study it some more, but we had tentatively said June 27th, and I'm just wondering if I should rally and find somebody to come and speak, or should we wait till, when's the legislation done? May?
23rd.
End of May.
Yeah, May 23rd. So again, I guess, I need to know, do I need to find somebody for the June 27th, or do we want to wait possibly and see what state legislation does? I mean, if they're not passing something, I guess then more information, more time will provide more information.
June 27th sounds good to me.
Even if they don't pass it, you still want to hear the pros and the cons.
I don't think there's anything
Okay.
wrong with hearing about it.
Okay, all right, I'll rally somebody for the June 27th. Now, will that be at the 5 o'clock portion of our meeting?
Yes.
Okay, at 5 o'clock on
The
June
committee is the
27th.
board.
Yep, okay, all right, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
And that's okay with Ms. Wilbright.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I don't have any update on where they are with ranked choice. I know there are a lot of changes coming to elections. A couple of bills that varied between the House and the Senate. Direct voting versus absentee versus now early voting. Currently, it's all, if you're voting before Election Day, it's absentee, regardless of what they call it. And that sounds like it's going to be changing. They're also going to be adding a lot of hours to my tiny crew that are required to be open. And I asked, all right, so how many people have to be here for those times if this passes? And per McCatfo's lead, Debbie Erickson, it's not if it passes, it's going to pass. And that is 3. Well, that's my whole staff. And that's going to be a lot of extra hours around the elections. It sounds like they are kind of meeting in the middle. McCatfo had pushed for, or Mako had pushed for not making all of those hours a requirement at every single county, because what works for Hennepin does not necessarily work for us or Fillmore or even smaller counties yet. But it sounds like they want a flat, this is the hours that everybody is open. So that's
Local
we will-
control out
yes.
the window. Huh?
we will deal with whatever comes down, but I mean, that's not the only change. What did pass is that felons, as long as they are not incarcerated, will be allowed to register and vote. That takes effect, I apologize, I don't know if it's June or July, but it won't be for this May election. If we ran into any issues, we would still have to pass those on to Karin's office, but they will be allowed to vote in our August general for our special election. So while I don't know where they're at with ranked choice at this time, there are a lot of election changes coming. And I've been brainstorming along with the Mako Forum crew of how we're going to educate voters and the public on all of the different changes that are coming.
Or is the board interested in getting educated ourselves, maybe after the dust settles and the legislature is done and the bills are passed? We could have Chelsea
Yes.
back to,
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like that too.
I spoke with Heidi actually. There's been a lot of concern about our voter rolls and not keeping them clean. Someone spoke up about having deceased individuals on the voter rolls. I sent them a letter saying, hey, here's the state form for the deceased voter. Please fill it out to your best of your ability and send it back to us. Help us keep the voter rolls clean. And I got the response this week was that was a misunderstanding that the spouse of the deceased individual had been saying for years that they were on the voter rolls when in fact they weren't. So I have been working up something to hopefully put something on the agenda pertaining to voter rolls and everything that we do on a daily basis to keep the voter rolls clean. So that's already in the back of my mind as well. So we may need a couple different presentations. One to cover all the work we do to keep the voter rolls clean, and another to discuss all of the changes that are coming.
We welcome you back once or twice.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Commissioner Bagley?
No, that's it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
you had an
sorry.
update.
Updates. I met with Eric Sieber, the director of Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. We discussed this before. I just want to update the board. So it's not on our list of committee assignments, but I was asked and I agreed to serve on Hiawatha Valley Mental Health. So I'll be joining that board, but it's not an official appointment. It's just FYI. So that's
Thanks for
it.
doing it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ward?
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, that is, and I served on it at one time, and I don't know if it was Ms. Sonneman or another county attorney, they felt it was almost a conflict of interest. Because you're approving, when you vote there, you're approving a lot of contracts that directly
I
our
don't think it
county,
was me, but
pardon me,
I don't think
county,
it was me, but.
county dollars. And so
But
I just,
probably would do the same thing. No.
yeah,
You
I mean,
just have to be
it
careful,
is
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe
Are
you
you
want to
there
think
as a
about that.
client?
You
What
might,
was that, Commissioner Olson?
I asked
serving
if he
on
was
the,
there as a client.
for
yeah.
serving on the board, we probably all need a little bit of counseling.
I mean, and that accounts to other committees and such too, that
Absolutely.
people are asked to be on.
We
And
serve on a lot of committees and a lot of boards.
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable being there and I strongly support their mission. So.
Thank you. All right, I
you
apologize.
may find yourself abstaining from votes then. And I'll have to ask for their
Or
meeting
it'll come to
minutes.
the board, I'll come to the board and I'll indicate where I voted or where I stand. So
I apologize because I have 7 things that I want to update you on. Did you pass this to Commissioner Bagley? Road and Bridge met and we went over adjustments to the this year and the capital improvement plan, which is like the next 5 years. That's a copy for you in case any of those projects are in your district. The highway engineer, Dave Kramer, asked, did we want him to come in front of the board and give a presentation on this information? I said, well, probably not. Commissioner Olson and I, all of our stuff is inside the city limits, so it's not really county projects, but some may affect you. So the understanding was you could call him individually and get the information, or if this board wanted, he would be willing to come do a presentation to the full board. So I just want to throw that out there.
Excuse me,
And-
Madam Chair,
yes.
if I may just also note that that information is on the Highway Department webpage.
Yes.
So any member of the public can go see that.
Yes, and it was in
And
the packet for
And the
meeting.
road tour was changed.
yeah, unfortunately, I adjusted my schedule for June, but now it's bumped to August. So,
If you can't make it in August, we'll change it again so that you can come.
okay.
We're not letting
Snowy
you,
day in January?
yeah, we're not letting you out of it, man.
Good.
I understood from the safety committee that once again, we have won the governor's award. So the 2022 Minnesota Safety Council Meritorious Achievement Award, and Heidi will be picking it, no, I'm sorry, Sheila Becker is going to be picking it up for us at the Minnesota Safety and Health Conference in May. So yay to them.
Come with a cash bonus?
Unfortunately not.
No, no cash?
No. But if we keep it up, we'll bring the mod rate down again.
Do you have details on how we won that? I'd be curious.
It-
Because our mod rates through a whole different MCIT.
But our safety measures impact.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
They do.
so I think-
Posters and marking the
Okay,
chemicals.
so
and-
do you have a criteria of how? how
We
and
can
why
get it
got
from
that?
Ms. Becker.
Okay, I'd be curious.
Okay, so Commissioner Ward and I are both on the opioid settlement county planning team, which is like a steering team. And we have had a couple meetings and we've had a presentation of a lot of great information. Caitlin Fox is an intern. She's an AmeriCorps, right? Yep, and she has done a lot of the research for what's eligible and then what is the data so that we can use data to sort of drive some of the decision making. And the group set a work plan. And so that is what I really just wanted to share with you is the work plan April and June, we'll be conducting a community needs survey and educating the public on the settlement. And we're discussing what form that would take. In July, we're supposedly going to be able to look at some survey results and develop the next steps and strategies. In August, Caitlin is going to research the evidence of the strategies. In September, maybe we'll be able to select those strategies and then bring the recommendations to the county board. In October, finalize the implementation process and discuss the ongoing committee support. And in the future to that, we would be doing monitoring. We contributed to a project with Habitat for Humanity to build, I think it's 12 homes in St. Charles. They're going to have their groundbreaking, and it will be on Saturday, May 6th from 2 to 3, in case anybody wants to go. I am planning to go. Commissioner Ward and I, okay, so there's a mental health conference, a Southeastern Minnesota Mental Health Conference in Rochester, which is the whole day of May the 11th. WADA, which is the Winona Area Industrial Development Association, asked us to come and speak on, as a part of a group at their annual meeting on opportunities for business and industrial development. Neither Commissioner Ward nor I can make it. So if one of you two could, it would be your opportunity. In addition to that, because I am going to that conference, I will not be able to attend the Soil Water Conservation District Board meeting on that Thursday, the 11th of May, in case somebody can attend that. And then the last thing is, this is the agenda. This is also for Commissioner Vegley. That's the agenda and the additions from the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee meeting. We spent majority of the time reviewing data that is similar to the data that some of the information that ASAP gave us earlier at the committee of the board meeting. I was actually kind of shocked by some of the statistical data in there that has to do with youth. I just picked a couple of things. Table 23 is mental health. 38% of our 8th graders in the county say that they have long-term mental health, behavioral, or environmental problems. 17% of the females in our 8th grade classes say that they've used marijuana or other drugs but not alcohol in the last year. So we went over that. We spent like at least an hour talking about it and talking through everyone. It was pretty informational, and I wanted to make sure you got a copy.
I've seen that. I've seen that and then some. I read an article 2 or 3 times a week about youth mental health, and I could spend an hour talking about it. Yeah. If you haven't been in a school in the last 10 years, it's very different than what school was before. The rates of suicide between 2007 and 2019 have increased 70%, 70. I'll just stop. I could go on and on about this. You've touched a very sensitive, yes. Feel passionate about that. There's a screaming need for more mental health services for our youth.
Yep, especially for kids. Okay, that was it. So that concludes our business.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Commissioner Olson has moved. Commissioner Vegley has seconded adjournment of the meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay. We are adjourned.